factor by grouping the first polynomial, 6x squared plus 12x plus 7x plus 14, and then do the second polynomial, x squared minus 3x plus 9. Now remember the steps for factoring 4 terms. You factor by grouping. So out of the first 2 terms for part A, we have 6x squared plus 12x. The number they have in common is 6, and the common factor of x, power of x, is x to the first power. So it's 6x times, what do we multiply to get 6x squared? X. And what do we multiply to get the 12x? Positive 2. Now look at the second 2 terms, plus 7x plus 14. What is the number that they have in common? 7. And what power of x do they have in common? Nothing. So it's just 7. Bring the 7 out in front, plus 7, parenthesis. We multiply by x to get the 7x, and then positive 2 to get the 14. All right, now there we have the factorization, pulling out the greatest common factor out of the first 2 terms, pulling the greatest common factor out of the second 2 terms. Now you see what we have? A common factor separated by that plus sign in the middle. The first term has a big parenthesis x plus 2 in common with an x plus 2 in the second. So we're going to take that miracle, I call it a miracle factor, take that miracle factor of x plus 2 in parentheses and write it out in the front. And then put another parenthesis and ask yourself, if you strip x plus 2 away from the first term above it, it leaves a 6x, so write 6x. If you strip away the x plus 2 from the second term above it, it leaves a positive 7. Put a positive 7, close your parenthesis, and you are finished. Just check it to make sure it's good by foiling it, and you'll see that you get the top expression that you started with. Now let's look at the other one. There are 4 terms. Solution, we're going to pull out the greatest common factor from the first 2 terms. What do they have in common? Well, they don't have any coefficient number in common, but they have x to the first power in common. So write x times parenthesis x, because x times x is x squared, and then minus 3, because x times minus 3 is minus 3x. So there is the result of factoring the greatest common factor out of the first 2 terms. Out of the second 2 terms, they share either a negative or a positive 3. You can choose whether you want to pull a negative or a positive out. You want to get that miracle factor to match the one that you just found in parentheses. So if it doesn't work, you might try a different sign. I'm going to try the negative 3. Negative 3 is what they have in common. And parenthesis, what must I multiply negative 3 by to get negative 3x above? A positive x. And what must I multiply a negative 3 by to get a positive 9 above? A negative 3. Now look, the miracle has occurred. We got our common factor of x minus 3 appearing in 2 different terms, so we're going to take that out, both of them, put them together in the front, and we have x minus 3. Now, what's left in parentheses? Well, when you strip the x minus 3 away from the first term, it just leaves x, so write x. And when you strip away the x minus 3 in parentheses from the second term, what does it leave? A negative 3, so write negative 3. Close your parentheses. And you've got x minus 3 times x minus 3, which you can, if you'd like, write in the shorthand fashion as parenthesis x minus 3, close parenthesis, squared, and that is your answer. So these are nice examples of how to factor by grouping, which we do when we have 4-term polynomials.